Last words for Edward Thomas, 13th of January 1917. Nothing to do but test compass, which never gives same results. I trust an educated guess out here on an English hill, as though the soil and grass growing lush with whisperings could spell my way. I can tell north by skeins of crying geese, whose chevrons fill the dusk, or clamouring rooks coming to roost at seed time or harvest. And I have found my rest where ways and trees are honest. But out there the French rooks have no roosts. I'll only have a compass, which never gives same results. 21st of January 1917. Old milestones lichened as with battered gold and silver nails, the place names encrusted. I can make out Coombe and Ford. Cold vagrants in the green road, beside a rusted threshing machine, ice-rimed in the freezing drizzle. Ash bowls stooping under clumps of ivy, gnarled, ungainly. Cattle wheezing fragrant steam. Downs scored with stumps of hunchbacked thorns. Icy roads, thatched farms, gouged coombes darkening into groins. An assemblage of shrouded forms might pass for trees or looming guns. 24th of January 1917. Back over frosty downs with new moon and all stars, but my ankles chafed by new boots lame me. Ruts in the chalk, half glimpsed in moonlight, twist leather against both blisters. Each step becomes an exquisite itch of spreading rawness. We must persevere. To stop, peel back socks, and not resist the urge to scratch, would admit a film of dust to the raw meat of each wound. A nightjar starts up, mothing, churring, its gape a purse of mist, hovers at eye height, swoops windward, and is lost. Frost falls in my upturned face, needles, melts. Three things are unchangeable: the way a blister weeps, the melancholy tone of the owl that salts my rest, the forking of the ways that forced me to enlist. 29th of January 1917. The rotten song in the still dark brought one tear, though why the tear was shed I shall not tell, and whether I am green or in the sear, I have done with shedding for a spell. The seagulls in the dusk are all afloat, loath to take the air as we depart, vacant-eyed, expressionless, remote. Not one of us will deign to show his heart. The men outside the cabin laugh and joke, delight in saying fucking carelessly. The air is filled with swaggering and smoke. I stoop to spill the tear into the sea. 8th of February 1917. Enemy plane like pale moth beautiful among shrapnel bursts, dazed by death's incandescence. Notes taken at a distance, painterly smears of war's aesthetic, mime show to songs of larks. My mind drifts through wide skies to dawn-lit downs and cloud inversions, chalk paths illumined under hedgerows, my long sight straining after birds or swift moths. The reverie dies, a powder smear of smoke smirching a flawless sky. 13th of February 1917. Evening censoring letters and reading sonnets. There was, if I should die, but I cast it aside, and shall I compare in the wintry air was hardly delightful. It was not quite the hell for what passing bells, and I'd not got the head for those mouthless dead. So I took for my text that Tommy's poor vexed words for his sweetheart darning his socks. I'm not harmed one bit, I've just got the jitters and wish I was hit in some fixable place, and needed no surgeon to rebuild my face. I know, it's cowardice, I'm bound to embarrass, but there's no consolation in trudging to Arras. I blotted the place name, oiled my gun, then turned up the mistress upstaged by the sun. 19th of February 1917. I still funk the telephone and did not use it once today. I'd rather take a battering than put in order what to say to the disembodied ear of someone at the next O.P. when the quavering of my voice can rouse an iron artillery to pulverize a wood or hill. A breath is all it takes to squash the wire, the trench, battalion all, and rain a maiming on the Boche. A pigeon or a dog would do, some frightened thing of flesh and bone. I'd strap destruction to its leg, but I funk a telephone. 23rd of February 1917. Wet, mortar, litter, almanacs. Bitter remains. There's that strange sense of trespass, of eavesdropping on the displaced. It's a strain, listening in on the long gone. Bottles, broken glass, damp beds, the mattress stuffing plucked by birds, the air ack-acking with the frack of past hangovers, anecdotes and straffings. Dirty paper, knife, crucifix stripped of varnish, tarnished spoons, wood shavings with crusts of mould, beautiful concretions of verdigris on smashed lamps. Statuette, old chairs, hairs still stuck to antimacassars, a scattering of relics. Out comes the notebook, bound in calfskin. I etch in dereliction. 24th of February 1917. Owls on Daneville Road. Machine guns and hanging lights above no man's land. Flares like bleached phosphorescence, or will-o'-the-wisps, exposing wire men with a cool malevolence. They flatten themselves to earth like mice, close their eyes, hope themselves invisible, their white necks twitching at the waft of unseen wings. That instinctive cringe before the talons clench. A writhing fizz of bullets. Whines, ghost moans, blood spurts, sighs. Banshee screams of 5-9s, the night air wide with eyes. 25th of February 1917. Huge bastions with sycamores in moat and tangled grass. The citadel succeeds from fire to weeds. Elders take root in lintels, church spires lean or melt like candles. Old glass leaves runnels down stones, caved in groins and arches. Chaffinches glean the serried teasels as the choir's seedling birches flex to windward, and entrenched in gutters old crops grow rampant. I turn nonchalant. I'll chat at lunch with Horton in a dead man's orchard. 16th of March 1917. The only time I slept I dreamt I was at home and couldn't stay for tea. I was the unknown man, grown gaunt with shadowed eyes. Mhavanwi didn't recognize me, Bronwyn turned away, and Mervyn, man tall, had nothing to say. I felt as though I watched you through the wrong end of a telescope, My heart was wrung with the coarse knot of things unspoken. I leaned in the dawnway, doubted I had ever loved, turned and looked on no man's land. And all the night the air was flapping as with great wings, or with the filling of hempen sails in a gusty wind, mortars, pip-squeaks, and pulverizing guns, dying murmurs, and in the dark 100 unsung murders. 17th of March, 1917. The morning chill and clear hurts my skin while it delights my mind. Frost flowers pierce through clots of mud. There are crusts of ice on duckboards, which creak and strain underfoot as I breathe, steam becoming shards, and light my morning pipe. Strange what a comfort fire can be. The hand-cupped flare of a struck match, the warm red grizzle of lighted tobacco fraying to white like a lit fuse. The clay stem feels snug between my teeth. I affect a nonchalance, flicking the brittle black question mark into the slime. There are magpies in pairs over no man's land. First shells screech and fall. 21st of March, 1917. Shell holes, full of blood-stained water and beer bottles among barbed wire. Engineers build roads in no man's land, incongruous under lark song. Last night, shells were flocks of starlings overshooting until a 5.9 flapped into a trench. Then I had to stay. A batman brought me tea, and I slumped against a trenched wall, got up again, stomped up and down. We live like rabbits, wide-eyed in moonlight, hunched against nightbirds. They block out stars, fill the dark with breathless moans, cast ragged silhouettes against the moon. 21st of March, 1917. Now I hardly felt as if a shell could hurt. My pocket watch would deflect it. Or this notebook would snatch a sniper's bullet just before it struck my heart. Larks would interpose, a stray chaffinch or partridge would find the feathers on its head were numbered, and I would walk between straffings like a moth flies through rain on a moonless night. I hardly felt. It left me untouched, except for my stopped heart and watch, and my last written words, germs of poems, scratched on archived pages, strangely crinkled. 31st of March, 1917. Machine gun bullets snaking along, hissing like little wormy serpents. You wonder how they spend themselves when they realize they must lick the mud instead of tasting flesh, all that wasted venom. You can't think of them once they've gone past you. You're remembering instead the writher's progeny, spontaneously combusted out of lead. The way they seem to morph like rootlets, probing for blood or warmth. I know them too well, they'll not submit to charms. They're not really serpents, only worms. 4th of April, 1917. Sods on the dugout begin to be fledged with fine green feathers of yarrow. I once glimpsed fairies by squinting the leaves, but now I scry nothing but sorrow. For I have seen milfoils grow under a hedge, I've seen them stand up on a barrow. But what shall I think when they burst into bloom, the flowers are mustard gas yellow? The sun and the wind are drying the mud, but the mortar and shell they will harrow us into the ground, then fledge us around with fine green feathers of yarrow. 6th of April, 1917. After the shelling, Horton remarks, "The Boche is a damn good man. We shell him, he shells us, he calculates arcs, it all goes according to plan. The Boche is a smart man, a very smart man. It's the third OP he has hit. He knows trigonometry, shows that he can. He's a fine man, you've got to admit." The Boche is a kind man, a merciful man, artillery primed for the duel, and only a fool could think for a span and pronounce him especially cruel. You'd not be a man if you didn't respect the heights to which he'd aspire. The Brit and the Boche compete to dissect a few million yards of barbed wire. How sad that the Boche, at war with the Brit, should end it all as he began, his rich men in state, his proles down the pit, but the Boche is a damn good man. 7th of April 1917. A great burst stood up like a birch tree or a fountain, a boiling cloud of bricks that was a house, alarms of larks and partridges. Roof tiles came down, autumn leaves shaken from the billow. Sparrows shot from hedges, magpies chacked and scattered as the dust settled, and in the open infantrymen froze a moment, then went about again, hauling boards for the wounded. Stillness. The birds returned. Easter Day 1917. A 5.9 fell 2 yards from me and only scratched my neck, skirting the danger zone. A thing the men call luck. That was only yesterday, Easter bright and warm. I lean aside to light my pipe. And what can be the harm? It's 24 to 8 and wet, the OP slushed with snow. But blackbirds sing as if their hope were something men should know. 12 more ticks is all it takes, time for a match to strike. My heart is stopped, all I leave is dissipating smoke. Undated. And no more singing for the bird. It is forbidden. The bill clammed shut with lime, feathers marred with cloying gum, notes crammed back down its pulsing throat. You see wire-strung men who look and sound the same and linger, spasmodic. I'd write a book about it, but I've not the time. I dare not sing or strike a chord to string out life a little longer. Dawn is silent, songless, unadored. I'll die by neither wire nor lime. Undated. Roads shining like rivers up hills after rain, climbing the downs from the quicksilvered plain, are bright in defiance of all that is true, cheaters of gravity, blinding and blue, leading me nowhere or into the sky, roads that gleam on if I live or I die. Roads that transfigure the lost and mundane, heavenly wendings, distractions from pain. So take up your load, soldier, stoop for your pack, the dazzling firmament glows in your track. There's nothing miraculous. Shoulder your gun. March to your end through the rain and the sun. Undated. I don't know why I could have cried and didn't. The empty shells of houses on the rise, the hoary trees that kept the soon dead hidden, the wind that brought the sting into my eyes, ought to have brought tears. The ones I wouldn't shed when I was kissing her farewell. But lips will seal, and tears will not be bidden, by fear or love or tolling of the knell. I don't know why I hoped to cry and couldn't, at Noiville in the morning, or how I keep composure, though the urge is strong and sudden. I bite down, for it wouldn't do to weep. Undated. I never understood quite what was meant by God, though I praised the tall nettles, the owl in the wood, or why he would raise me from under a clod when the loam was so wet and the grass was so good, and how he created the weft and the web, the plague and the battle, the smiting and flood, the breathing and grieving, the flow and the ebb, and drenched us with mercy and drowned us in mud. Or why he let larks whistle over this trench, as over a down, a field, or a fell, or how he can bear this intolerable stench, and being omniscient know it full well, as we sang in the chapel all glinted with glass, that the sermons in stone would soon be destroyed. I never could tell, in the drifting of gas, quite how the word was pronounced in the void, or how he could save me by spilling his blood, yet leave half the world at the mercy of hell. It isn't quite Christ-like, it's not understood, with my wife half a widow, and my name on a shell.